All right, we are getting started with lesson 1, which is going to teach your robot to move in a straight line. And when you first open up your Lego software, it's always going to come to this first screen, the quick start screen. On the left, you have two different options to go to. Well, you have a lot of options, but the ones that you will tend to use the most are File to open or create a new document, and your Robot Educator. The Robot Educator has all these different programs set up so that you can go through them. You'll notice a lot of the programs that we are using start with these names. So here's our straight move, and you can see this is exactly what your robot is going to do. It's going to drive forward and then stop, and drive backwards and stop, and then drive forward again. So it's very exciting, but you finally will get to teach your robot how to move forward and backwards again. So if you look at your objectives, we have two objectives. One is the content objective, which is you're going to investigate different ways to control the driving base, which is basically your robot, to move in a straight line. And then your language objective is what you're actually going to do. You are going to write and test a program to make the robot move in a straight line. So in your program, what I want you to do is I want you to click on File. And then the submenu will appear, and I want you to click New, and then double-click Program. When you do that, the main screen will appear. Over here on the right, this pop-up window will always appear. To close it, all you have to do is click on this little, it's kind of like the robot icon. You'll see it on your, if you look at your robot, it actually is the design that's made between the run button and the up and down, left and right buttons. So if we click that, it closes up. On the screen, you have your menu options. You have File, Edit, Tools, and Help. Typically, the one you'll go to is File. And you could have chosen File, New, and then Program here to get started as well if you didn't want to use the actual buttons. But then we also have your Save and Save As. You have two tabs here. This first tab says Project, the second one says Program. When we save the document, the one up here is the one that's going to change. This is how every program comes in. It comes in with Project and then Program, kind of similar to in Word. When you open up a document, it says Document 1. This is the generic name that it always gives the document. Over here on the right, you have icons. The select icon is the one with the arrow. That is what typically we will be using. This little hand icon allows you to actually click and drag the screen, so I can move things around on the screen if I want to, or if my program gets extremely long. This is a comment button. We'll get into that towards the end of the program. And then we have Save, Undo and Redo, and then you can zoom in and zoom out. I'm going to click back on the Select button so that we can choose things on our screen. This right here is your Run button. Anytime you run the program, this is where it starts. When you push play or you push run, this is the beginning of the program, and it'll immediately go to the first brick in the list. Down at the bottom, you have your tabs. All of your motor tabs or action tabs action icons are down here at the bottom. On the orange tab, you have flowchart type items, things that help the program flow. We have tons of different sensors. We'll get into some of them. Data operations is a little bit more advanced. We will not have time to do that, but the robot can do a lot of calculations and determining different things, sending information between robots, that type of thing. We have advanced options, which is even higher order than that. We unfortunately will not get into any of those. And then this last one, the aqua one, you'll see is blank. That's because this is a MyBlock tab. When you create programs, you can actually save them as MyBlocks, and then your programs will appear down here so you can throw them in one of your new programs. Go back to the green tab, and the very first thing we're going to do is we are going to have our robot drive forward. Now, all of these directions are in your binder so that you can follow along. The one we are going to use right now is just Move Steering. When you click on it, you have to left click. Once you left click, you do not have to click and drag. As long as you click on it, it attaches to your pointer. As we bring it over to this play button or the start button, you'll see that the background kind of turns gray. When that happens, if you click, it actually snaps to the play button and is part of your program. If it ever looks like this, where it's kind of grayed out, it is not part of your program. It's just sitting on the screen over to the side. It's never going to be used. So you got to make sure if you want to use it, it has to be brightly colored and in the program. Things to notice about this icon. First, two motors means that both motors are moving. The way it's easy to remember, it looks like a steering wheel, so Move Steering. If you hit this first drop down, you have different choices for your motor. You can tell the motors to turn off, you can tell them to turn on, or you can give them specific directions like turn on for a number of seconds, turn on for a number of degrees, or turn on for a number of rotations. This little icon right here that has an arrow pointing up, that's your steering. Am I going straight? Am I turning? Am I going backwards? This right here looks like a little odometer on a car. That is your power. How fast is your motor going to move? It can be anything from -100 to +100. I will tell you 100% power is not going to be extremely fast, but you'll see that when we actually start testing. This icon here that looks like a pound sign, or you call it a hashtag with a rotating arrow around it, that tells us how many rotations, because we have on for rotation select. This icon actually will change depending on what you pick in the other list. Now, right here it says 1, so that means 1 rotation. The thing you have to understand, it is a rotation of the motor, not a rotation of the wheel. So you could change out the wheels. You could put a big wheel on it, you could put a little teeny tiny wheel on it, and it would affect the robot. But the motor itself will turn a specific number of degrees or rotations or seconds. Remember, it's the orange part of the motor that's spinning. This right here is your brake. Your robot has 2 choices. It can brake at the end of the 1 rotation in this case, or it can coast. What that means is brake would be like you're riding your bike really, really fast and you slam on the brakes. Whereas coast would be you're pedaling really fast on your bike and then you just stop pedaling and your bike continues to go until it stops on its own. So typically it starts with brake on. You actually have to tell it if you do not want the brake on. Last thing is up here in the top right hand corner are the ports. These are the motors that are actually being used. You'll notice right now your robot has 2 ports selected. There's cords going into 2 of them. Port B and port C. Those are the typical ones that your robot will be set up with. You also could change it to A or D, but just so that you know, the way that our robot is set up, you're going to be using ports B and C, which is the default, which makes it kind of nice. Okay, so for this first brick, we are going to tell the robot we want to move forward 2 rotations. So we already have on for rotation selected. We want to move forward, which it's pointing up. That means it's going forward. If it's ever pointing down, that means it's going backwards. Power, we can leave the power at 50. And we want to say go forward for 2 rotations, so 2 turns of that orange motor. And then we want it to brake.